Welcome to this month's Money Gym Masterclass here at London Mutual. This month, we're looking at loan sharks and illegal lending. So, some of you may recognize me. My name's Anthony. I'm the head of credit control here at London Mutual. And you may recognize me from some of the earlier sessions that we've done earlier in the year. I'm head of credit here. I look at in finding tricky situations for members and helping them out with debt. And we're very excited to announce that this month we are working with our first guest speaker, Kath from Stop Loan Shark Project. We're very excited. It's one of our first. What we'll be covering today's session is what is a loan shark? What are the risks? Stop Loan Shark Project, loan shark horror stories, what the credit unions are doing to help. As always, we'll wrap up with a Q&A at the end. You can feel free to ask questions throughout, but we will primarily do them at the end. If you do think anything's necessary, please do type in. A little bit of an icebreaker. So, do you think you know how to spot a loan shark? To be honest, I think we all hear on through the movies and TV, what is a loan shark? And you typically have a look around and go, right, I think it's this type of person. So having a quick look, which one is a loan shark? Number one, number two, or number three? I'll leave a couple of minutes for anybody to type in the box. Oh, I can see some answers coming in there. I can see one that says number two, number one, and yes, quite rightly. Which one is a loan shark? Well, actually, they all could be a loan shark. You could have a friend, the elderly couple down the road, your doctor, and typically I think in number three you can see the builder that looks quite mean and menacing, but actually they all can be a loan shark, and here's why. So what is a loan shark? Loan sharks are a type of illegal money lenders that operate in many different ways, from door-to-door meeting a stranger in the pub, or even an old friend offering to lend some money. We talk about in our previous sessions about APR rate and interest rates. And I think most people talking about a loan shark or speaking to a loan shark will go, well, they must be legit. They're talking about interest rates. They're talking about APR. How does that come into it pretty much?
I mean, most of them won't talk about interest. They may say double bubble. We hear that a lot, which means you borrow £500, you pay back £1,000, you pay back twice what you've borrowed, basically. But quite often they don't mention interest rates at the time at which the loan is taken out. But we've evidenced APRs in excess of 130,000% when we've worked with victims and we've looked at what they've borrowed and what they've paid. So huge amounts of APR. APR can be a little bit misleading because if you are paying back something quite quickly, the APR is quite high. So the better thing to look for if you are comparing loans is what we say total cost of credit. And that's the better thing to look for because that will tell you exactly how much you are going to repay on that loan. But a loan shark won't tell you that because they never want you to think their loan is paid off. They never want you to think you've got to the end of it. It'll all be very vague and, oh, pay me when you can. Oh, we don't talk about interest today. Let's just sort you out. We'll talk about it later. And it's all very vague and non-committal at the start when you're actually taking the loan out.
Sort of getting the hook in as quick as they can and just keeping it going. No problems. So I think moving on to what are the risks and what to look for a loan shark? I think, same with me, who can be targeted? I wouldn't even know if I'm being targeted. What would I look out for? Have I already been targeted? That's the question. You just don't know.
It's really hard because I think, unfortunately, loan sharks don't walk around with a placard on saying they're a loan shark. People don't often make the choice to borrow from a loan shark. They think they're borrowing from a friend. They think they're borrowing from someone who is helping them out, from a kind person who is helping them out, or from someone their mate's borrowing from. So that must be okay because Christy's borrowing from them. So why wouldn't I? The biggest thing to look out for is that no paperwork. That would be the biggest clue to me. This is a loan shark. A regulated, legitimate loan company, such as London Mutual, will give you paperwork. They have to. It's a legal requirement. And loan sharks, as I say, don't, to try and mask maybe exactly what the terms are that you're agreeing to or not agreeing to, as the case may be. So the big red flag, klaxon sounding warning would be no paperwork. That's the biggie. One of the other risks is that some loan sharks are involved in organised crime. So that might be what you are funding, which people obviously do not like the idea of. Because they can't quite often take you to court to get their money back, they will often use threats or intimidation to make sure you carry on paying. And we have seen physical threats. We've seen people where they've said, I'll break your legs if you don't pay, which is what you'd expect number 3 on that list from before to do. But actually, a lot of the time, the threats are a lot subtler than that. It's more like coercive control. So it'll be things like, your partner doesn't know you've taken out this loan, does he? Wouldn't it be terrible if he found out because I told him? You know, your kids go to school with my kids. Wouldn't it be awful if they started being bullied in the playground? We work at the same place. Wouldn't it be terrible if I told the boss to watch you because I think your hand's in the till because I know you owe people money? Those sorts of things to start with, and then it spirals from there. We've had people where they've been bad-mouthed on social media. We've had people where their windows have been put in, or graffiti has been put on their property saying they are a bad debtor. It's a lot about intimidation and shame, which again, a legitimate company could not do. Very high interest rates. The worst case that I've ever come across was a guy who borrowed £250 and paid back £90,000 on that loan. That was for a car. And the deal was he paid back 5 times £50, which he did. But then the loan shark came back for interest and came back and came back and came back and threatened him, threatened his children. And he ended up paying back £90,000. So you can see how it can spiral out of control.
Wowza, yeah. That's a lot of money when you think
It's a lot of money.
for £250, yeah.
You could have bought a very nice car for £90,000, to be fair, rather than £250 to repair the old banger, which is where the loan started. I think the biggie as well for us, they start off friendly. So over 2/3 of the people that we helped last year said they believed they were borrowing from a mate. And that's quite a tricky one for us because we put messaging out there saying, don't use loan sharks. And 2/3 of the people who are using loan sharks would go, I'm not, because they believe they're borrowing from a friend or a friend of a friend. And that's really tricky because it takes sometimes a long time for them to realize this is not a mate. This is not someone who's helping me out. This is more than that. One of the big things with that is someone who's lending to lots of people. So if you can imagine, if I was borrowing legitimately from someone I work with, they wouldn't have capacity to lend 20, 30 people at work lots of money. If they're charging interest again, that would sound dodgy to me. And it's just, I think, sometimes about being a bit cynical about who you borrow money from in the first place.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think even looking at it for myself, I think some of the questions that I've asked would be, well, I'm never going to be that person that does that. I'm like, I know the risks. I know what to look out for. And actually, when you put it in perspective, that it could be a friend, a family member, it could be anybody. Yeah, it does make you sort of question. Actually, is that legit? And is that, where can I go from it? Okay, no, brilliant. Let's move on. And I think coming into the next thing is, it's what you guys are currently doing at the moment. So Stop Loan Shark Project. What is it? I said, for me yesterday, we had a little catch up and chat about it. I never really, to be honest, heard of you guys. If it's only recently when joining the credit union, it's sort of come more and more in the role here for me. And when I started learning and reading, and the more I got, it was actually like reading. It's like watching Crime Watch. It was quite a good, wow, this is, we're actually making a real impact here and you're doing some good work. So yeah, if you want to touch base with.
Yeah, sure. So it says there the England IMLT. So IMLT stands for Illegal Money Lending Team. And that's what we're officially called. That's what we're called in the legislation from government. And that's what we're called by our funders. I hate the name Illegal Money Lending Team because I think it makes it sound like we lend money illegally. Yep. Which I do not. This is not a confession. So I prefer Stop Loan Sharks, which is what we use. That's our web address as well, because I think that describes what we do. We stop loan sharks. So we are very much a team of two halves. We have liaise officers. I'm the liaise manager. I have 19 liaise officers. And what my team do is all the kind of support of people. So someone borrows from a loan shark, we will support them. That could be about the fact that they're terrified of the loan shark. It could be about the fact they're paying the loan shark, so they're not paying their rent. So they're facing eviction. It could be around the fact that their mental health has been impacted by things around the loan shark. Whatever that support is needed, we tailor it to the individual. The other half of the team is the enforcement arm. So we are a trading standards team, and we have the power to arrest loan sharks and prosecute them, take them through the courts, take them off the streets, and take away their shiny things through the proceeds of crime as well. So since 2004, when we were set up, we've supported over 30,000 people and written off over £87 million worth of illegal debt that was going to loan sharks. The big thing is we're very reliant on people being brave enough to call us. We take information and intelligence from the public. Sometimes that's from victims. Sometimes that's from people like credit unions who maybe are looking at affordability of a loan and spot something that doesn't look right. Sometimes it's from a housing officer who's got a tenant who's always been a good payer and suddenly got into rent arrears. Might be from the police, where a loan shark's forced someone into shoplifting because they literally can't feed the children because they're just paying the loan shark all the money. So we get intelligence from a number of places, but we're very reliant on people telling us what's going on. So people can talk to us anonymously, they can talk to us in confidence, but just have that conversation. And the thing to say as well is, if you've borrowed from a loan shark, you are the victim of crime. They are a criminal. You have done absolutely nothing wrong. In the same way that if your house was burgled, you are the victim of crime. You'd report that. It is literally no different. You are the victim of somebody else's crime, somebody else's manipulation. And if they're doing it to you, I guarantee they're doing it to more people than you.
No problem. I think with that as well, I know we touched base yesterday, what most people, that you say the victims are going to be 50-50 in contacting you. What would you say to them? I understand that, it's confidential, but I'm thinking of some of the experiences that I've had when people have mentioned loan sharks. They don't want to speak up. They're not going to speak up. They're frightened to speak up. In your experience, what advice would you give them?
I completely get it. Because what loan sharks will do as well is they'll undermine people's confidence. They'll say things like, they won't listen to you. They're not there to help you. They'll shaft you. They'll leave you. And then I'll know that you've reported them. And then where will you be? But actually, in reality, we've got 100% success rate at court. Every single loan shark we have taken to court, we've won the case. The vast majority of loan sharks will plead guilty. I think we've only had one person had to go to court in the last 6 years against the loan shark, because they get a reduced sentence if they plead guilty. So it makes sense for them to do that. And actually, I've been doing this job 14 years now, and nothing has ever happened to anyone that has reported a loan shark in that time. Bad things happen when people don't report loan sharks. That's when we get people pushed to the brink of suicide. That's when we've seen assaults. That's when we've seen all sorts of things happen. After the loan shark is reported, that changes. And we will, like I say, take information in confidence anonymously. The other thing is, you report a loan shark today. We don't go through their door tomorrow and say, "Oi, Anthony says you're a loan shark. What you got to say about that then?" Because, we'd never do that. We build up a case. We will look at all sorts of intelligence sources to build up a case. And it may well be that they never find out who reported them in the first place, even if you do go on the record with us. But you can do that anonymously. You can talk to us in confidence. We're very much about the individual. If it's not safe for us to take it forward, we won't do so. And as I say, 14 years, we've never had anything happen to anyone who has reported a loan shark to us.
Yeah. And no, to be honest, when you say it like that, it does give that bit more confidence, that you're giving more confidence to people. Does it always have to be over the telephone? Can you...
No, we have forms on our website that you can fill in an email if you like to do so. We also have live chat on our website that's available Monday to Friday 9 to 5, where you can type, and that's completely anonymous. We don't get to see anything about you when you do that. And it can sometimes, I think, feel a bit more anonymous than phoning up, because even if you phone up, it's still your voice, isn't it? You're still speaking to somebody. Whereas people like to type. I do it. I like to hide behind typing rather than speaking sometimes. So we've got live chat on the website. You can email it in. We've got a text messaging service and the hotline, which is available 24 hours, 7 days a week. But we'll also meet people anonymously. So if one of your clients have concerns about a loan shark, they could say to you, "I want to meet stop loan sharks, but I don't want them to know who I am." We'd come to your offices. We wouldn't know who they were. We'd have a chat with them. And at the end of that conversation, they can decide what they want to do. Do they want to engage with us? Do they want to walk away? Never any pressure from us. But we'd rather people had like an informed decision and knew what it meant to engage or not to engage than just sat at home terrified the whole time.
Yeah. Have we, over obviously pandemic and more that we have gone digital, have you seen more people use the chat than they would phone in? Is that more of a common occurrence now that you're going to...
The phone line's still the most popular one. That's how we get most of our intelligence, is still the hotline. Maybe because it's 24 hours as well, because we will get a lot of calls at 8 o'clock at night when I think people are stressing about something. Live chat, we only introduced at the start of lockdown. The reason being, we suddenly thought, if people are at home isolating, or if people are at home shielding with family members, then phoning a hotline might not be an option for them. Whereas live chat, you can just look like you're messing about on your phone while you're chatting to us. We probably get about 15-20% of our intelligence now through live chat. So it is a valuable thing, and it is here to stay. But I think the hotline is still the way we get most of it.
Brilliant. My favorite part, I was speaking yesterday, was the case studies. I think, sort of having a look at some of the big events that have happened. I wonder if you can explain. I said half of this yesterday I didn't even know. So actually looking at it and hearing some of the stuff. So yeah, I'll let you crack on with this one.
Thank you. So the friend of the friend, I would say, if there's such a thing as a typical loan shark, the typical loan shark is a friend of a friend. So that is someone with an overheard conversation at the school gates, at work, down the pub, wherever, where someone is saying they're a bit short of cash. And normally something has happened. So the car's broken down, it's school uniform time, it's coming up to Christmas. There is normally a trigger for someone needing that money. Sometimes it might be a bill that's come in unexpectedly, or a demand for payment, and people are getting worried about their debt and things like that. And the way the conversation will go is that someone will say, oh, that's awful. I've been like that. Do you know who really helped me out? Graham. I'll introduce you to Graham if you like. He's ever so nice. I'm sure he'll lend you the money. He's helped me out loads of times. And that's how it happens. And they get introduced to Graham. Graham says, yeah, I can help you out. That's absolutely fine. Gives them the money, potentially no mention of interest. He might say, pay me back double, but he might mention no interest whatsoever. And that's how it starts. Double bubble is the standard, if there is one, interest rate loan sharks will charge, which is you pay back twice what you borrowed. Now, some loan sharks will do that very quickly. So you borrow £400 on the first of the month, you have to pay back £800 at the end of the month. Now, in all likelihood, if you need £400 on the 1st of April, you haven't got £800 on the 30th of April. So what they'll kindly do for you then is double it again. So now on the 31st of May, you owe £1,600. And by the end of June, you'll owe £3,200. I have a maths degree. That should have been easier than it was in my head. You'll owe £3,200. And it spirals out of control. The OCG is organised crime group, and we have seen loan sharks where there have been links to organised crime, where they actually almost have the lending as a way of money laundering. So they get money in from drugs or people trafficking or modern day slavery, and they lend that money out in the community. And when it comes back, it feels a lot cleaner to them than it would do if it was drugs money still or for modern day slavery and so on. That's the exception rather than the rule. The vast majority of loan sharks are not involved in organised crime gang, although they may want you to think that they are, which brings us on to the elusive Mr. Big. So Mr. Big is the idea that it is not me that has lent you this money. It's Mr. Shady who is behind me. So I'm your mate and I've lent you this money to help you out, but it wasn't my money, it was his money. And I'm the intermediary between you, and I'm trying to keep him away from your doorstep, but you need to keep paying me because I can only keep him away for so long. You don't want to deal with him. I'm your mate, I'm trying to help you out. And in the vast majority of cases, the elusive Mr. Big does not exist. But we've had loan sharks where they've even named Mr. Big as someone from a known crime group locally, you know, a name that will strike fear into the hearts of people as a way of making people pay. And it's just another manipulation, just another control mechanism, because it plays on both those things. If I'm your friend, you know, you're putting me in a bad situation here with Mr. Big as well. And also the vague threat of something sinister that you don't want to get involved with. Coercive control is how I describe what a lot of loan sharks do. So the threat sometimes isn't explicit. One of the worst ones that I remember dealing with that's really stuck with me was a lady where she borrowed money from an ex-boxing champion. He was a big lad. And she paid him back. And then she thought, oh, this is wrong. I've paid back more than 3 times what I borrowed. So she challenged him. I didn't take kindly to this at all. So what he did the next day, he met her teenage daughters from school. And he said, your mum's asked me to walk you home. There's stuff going on the estate today. It's a bit dodgy. So I'm just going to walk you home, girls. He was nice as pie to them the whole way home, bought them ice cream. But the mum, the victim, was at her kitchen window doing the washing up. She looks up at the end of the drive are her 2 teenage daughters with this big ex-boxing champion that she owes money to. And he didn't need to do anything else apart from that. She paid him for another 4 years. And she would have carried on paying him to today if someone else hadn't reported him and we hadn't intervened. Because it was all about, this is what I could do if I want to. We've had loan sharks where they'll send their location on Snapchat to a victim and they'll be just around the corner. And again, it's no an explicit threat. There's no, I'm going to break your legs. It's, I'm here. I know where you live. And if I chose to do something about it, I could.
It's making a presence,
Absolutely. Yeah. And in a way, it's more sinister because your brain works. It's the way horror movies work, isn't it? The horror movie is what you don't see. It's not what you do see. It's what your imagination does. And that idea of someone lurking, that idea of someone knowing where you are, watching you, being able to access your family, you don't need the explicit threat. That's the way that the control works sometimes. Rented debt is quite a new one on us. So rented debt is where you don't borrow money, you rent it. So you want £2,000, I will rent you £2,000. The rent is £200 a month. And you will pay that £200 a month until you can pay me the full £2,000 back. Because you've not borrowed the £2,000, so you're not paying it back by paying me £200. You're renting it the same way you'd rent a flat or a car. And people can pay £200 for months, years, almost decades, and they'll still owe that original amount of money because they never quite get the lump sum to pay it back. So the lender you've never met in social media are kind of one and the same in a way. We've seen an increase in cases where we've got loan sharks where they operate over social media. So an example would be a loan shark maybe who's based in Yorkshire, who's got victims all over the country, and they all operate on a WhatsApp group. And the thing they've got in common is they're all from Zimbabwe. So it's a Zimbabwean community group on WhatsApp. There is one lender in there, and the threats and shame will be that you will be named in that group if you don't pay. The social media one, even worse, it can be sometimes a lender where they're advertising. We had one who advertised on Snapchat, actually paid an influencer to recommend him to people, to students. It was all done through bank transfer, never met a single one of his victims, and made threats to them through Snapchat as well. And again, it gives them a bigger reach because he was based in Doncaster and he had victims in London, in Berkshire, in Dorset, all over the country. And it's a really hard one to crack from our point of view because those victims are never going to meet each other. So they're never going to have the conversation about this guy being dodgy. They're going to think they're the only person. They're going to feel completely isolated. And that makes it even harder sometimes, I think, for people to report.
Given that we're in a digital age now, in the last couple of years, COVID, everybody's gone digital, from ordering your shopping to birthday cards to just your general living is digital. How easy is it to be approached by a loan shark via junk mail, Snapchat, WhatsApp?
I think it's very easy. I think sometimes people will go looking for it. So we know there's Reddit forums that are dedicated to lending people money. And sometimes that is a genuine person trying to do someone else a good deed. And sometimes it can be a loan shark on the prowl. We've even seen it on dating sites, though, where people have gone on and have been chatting to what they believe to be a potential partner. And they've just, as you do in everyday life, moaned about money. And the partner said, oh, my mate lends people cash. Do you want me to see if he'll do you a loan? And then you're in a whole world of, well, this is my partner. What's going on here? What's the dynamic? And people, again, are very reluctant to report it because they think this is a potential partner who's actually introduced them to the loan shark, who may or may not exist. It may well be the potential partner who's giving them the loan themselves.
No problem. I think moving on to the next slide of what we're doing here at the moment, we've partnered with yourself and the project. First of all, credit unions in general, we are a great option for borrowing. Most local credit unions offer lower rates than the regular high street bank or credit card. And to be honest, the most important thing about credit unions is that, we are legal, we're regulated and authorized by the FCA. I think the part that sort of yesterday when going over this with you was the numbers that you've helped with this project. And I don't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about that, but even for me reading it yesterday, I was like, wow, it's definitely something that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best bits of my job is we get loan sharks money back through proceeds of crime. We get a proportion of it. The rest goes off to the courts and the police and so on. But the proportion that we get back, we'd love to give back to victims, but quite often loan sharks' records aren't good enough for us to do that. So what we do instead is put it back into the community. And we do that through community projects. We've done things like drama projects in schools, massive murals, warning people to stop loan sharks on the side of shopping centres. But also with credit unions, we will incentivise people to save. So you join, you save for an amount of time, and we put £25 in from loan sharks cash, just as an incentive to get people saving. And the idea is if you can build up just a little bit of financial resilience, which can be difficult, but even £2 a week can make a difference, then actually the next time something does go wrong, the car breaks down, it's school uniform, it's Christmas, you've got a little bit put away, which can really help. So yeah, we've paid over £150,000 into the accounts of credit union members. We're working with over 100 credit unions in England. And that's probably over 10,000 now, the number of new accounts that have opened under our savings incentive scheme.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I saw the numbers yesterday and I was, for going into a project that, you go, really? Is there that many loan sharks in the 21st century? And then you see it and you go, actually, this project is making a big difference. So we got some questions coming through. I think first of all, before we go into questions, just want to say thank you for joining us. It's it's brilliant to get some voices out there and get the project known, and I'm glad that we're partnering with you guys. Please feel free to type any questions in for myself or Kath. If we don't cover the question in the video, we will get back to you, and you can email us at feedback@creditunion.co.uk. And please just remember that we cannot give any individual financial advice on this session, and please do not use any personal information in the chat. see, you've got a couple of people type in. So there's one there for me. Have you ever been contacted by a credit union member who was a victim of a loan shark? Not directly. I think it boils down to the conversation Kat had, that they are quite nervous. You know, they're a victim. They're quite nervous to have that conversation. They've definitely hinted that, you know, oh, I'm paying my brother back, or I've had to pay my friend £20 a week because I borrowed £100 off of them. And I think directly then is when, you know, this is why the project is going, is to get people aware of, actually, do they know the situation that they're in, that they've actually got a loan shark on their hands. So yeah, not directly. No one's ever actually said to me, oh, I'm a victim. But when you start going further into, you know, a scenario or financial planning or just budgeting, you go, well, actually, that £25 that you've been paying back for the last 4 months, who is that to, and is that legit? And I think that sort of opens up the doors there. Yeah, so I can see a message there for Helen. Helen, I will reach out. If you could drop an email to feedback@creditunion.co.uk, we'll be able to help you with that. That's a bit of more of a personal question to your Pacific loan here. But yeah, if you could drop an email to feedback@creditunion.co.uk, we'll be able to get somebody to respond back to you. So I'm just reading one there from Victor. I believe some form of saving, even if it's small amount, will put you in frame of mind not to borrow dangerously. What do you think? Definitely, I think if you look back at some of our previous sessions, you know, we encourage to save. We help with financial planning, financial goals. That's one of the biggest things that we offer, as you know, as well as you're looking at getting a loan with us or an account. We want you to save, and I think this project is really key at doing that as well. What do you think on that, Kath?
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember when I was a kid, the NatWest pigs were around. So, you know, you saved so much money, you got a pig, and then you got another pig, and you got another pig. And I genuinely think, you know, I've always had a kind of savings mentality, but I think that helped. And we're trying to do some work in schools around the idea of saving and the idea of almost deferred gratification, isn't it? Of waiting for something and saving up for something. And, you know, I do it with my kids, that they want something, and we'll talk about how many weeks pocket money it will get before they get it. And they actually enjoy it more because they've had to wait for it somehow. And I think it is definitely a mentality that has an impact. Having said that, it is a very difficult thing for some families to do, especially at the moment with cost of living, the way it's going, and people almost living hand to mouth. The idea of saving even a small amount can you know, be quite a difficult one, but I do think it has massive benefits.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that we've touched base on quite here in an earlier session was budgeting, and actually understanding your budget before you look at savings, and actually, is it doable for yourself? And, you know, I would never suggest anybody to live beyond your means or save more than you actually can. As you said earlier on, £2 a week can make a big difference at the end of the year, or even £1 a week, even if it's for something small. I think that's sort of a good way to start off. Let's see if there's any more questions that have come through. So we've got one there come from one of our members there, and he said, what evidence is used to prosecute a loan shark?
So it can be various things. When we do an investigation, quite often it's from information. It might be anonymous. It might be someone who's willing to go on the record with us, by which I mean give us a statement. What we will do then is get a warrant to search the alleged loan shark's property, and we're looking for things like cash. We did go into one property, I always remember it, and they had on the bottom step £1,000, on the next stair £2,000, on the next stair £3,000, and it went all the way up the stairs. That was quite an easy one for us. Sometimes they hide things better than that, but we were looking for electronic devices. Quite often loan sharks will keep records on their phone or WhatsApp messages. We can evidence between them and borrowers. We're looking for records. We used to find paper books quite often, but less than that now. I think more of it's on the cloud and various other places. So we're basically looking for any evidence of illegal lending. If someone's got a massive stack of passports, none of which are in their name, that's going to be a massive red flag. Something is going on there, whether it's illegal lending or people trafficking or something else. So anything that shouldn't be there, large amounts of money and electronic or paper records as much as anything else.
No problem. Just on the back of that, I think a lot of, I don't know if it's just come to me or anybody else, that what's the time difference? Because if you're a victim and you feel very unsure of doing it, you've still got to pay that person. You're still going to have, I'm going to speak to you and I'm still going to have that, oh no, I need to pay Mr. Big down the road next week.
Yeah.
What do you do in that meantime? What's that? Because I think that might reassure.
Yeah, to be honest, it depends on the situation. You know, if there is a likelihood that Mr. Big is going to kill them in the meantime, then keep paying, absolutely. But we never advise people. I think they have to make their own minds upon that. What sometimes people will do is try and negotiate reduced payments in the short term while the investigation goes on. And as to how long an investigation can take, it could take a week, it could take a year. It depends on the nature of the evidence that we've got, and it depends on resourcing. We have to prioritize jobs either where there's the greatest risk to somebody or public interest in terms of the greatest number of victims or the likelihood of a prosecution and a whole host of other factors. If there is significant risk of harm, that is the thing that will bump a job to the top of the list. But it can take a while, which again, I think in a way is reassuring as well, because if you've got an issue with the loan shark today and report them and we don't go through the door for 2 months, they're very unlikely to link that back to their issue with you today. Which I think can be reassuring as well. And it will be on other evidence as well, as we've discussed.
No problem, brilliant. And I think one of our last questions there from Jane is it wrong to loan money to a friend and family and put a little bit of interest on?
It's a tricky one. So the line between doing that and a loan shark is actually in precedent rather than set out in legislation, which doesn't help me. Or you, Jane, probably. But the answer is, if you're doing it to 2 people, you're absolutely fine. You know, if you're lending to your brother and your sister 100 quid and they're giving you 110 pound back, there's no problem with that. What the law says is if you are doing it as a business, then you need to be authorized. So we would argue that as a business means more than 2 people and means charging interest. So again, you know, if my dad's lending money to me, my brother and my sister, not charging us any interest, absolutely fine. No loan sharking there. Might get him a bottle of wine at the end of it, not strictly speaking interest. So that's okay. I think it's where it crosses that line into a business. We say that's sort of more than 2 people, but that's on precedent, not necessarily stipulated in the legislation.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite a good point to make. I don't want anybody to come away from this or watch this and feel like, oh, I've lent my cousin and my brother £100 the other day and I've asked for
through the door.
Yeah, you know, you're not a loan shark. That is just, you know, you are helping out a family member in that sense.
We do get people who will ring up and try and shop their uncle though. You know, my uncle's lent me £5 grand. I've only paid him back £100. He wants the rest of the money. Can you do something about that? No, pay your uncle back.
Yeah, so definitely there is a big difference there to have a look at. No problem, that's brilliant. Let's have a look. So yeah, just coming to an end with this session. If anybody does have any questions or they do want to get in contact with Stop Loan Sharks, there is a number on our screen. And if not, you can drop in an email at reportloansharks@stoploansharks.gov.uk. And if you do need any help with your account here at the credit union, please email help@creditunion.co.uk. And once again, just want to say thanks to Kath for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll be doing a lot more in the near future with yourself. Just for next month, we are doing a money gym masterclass and we are looking at spreading the costs of summer with London Mutual. We're going to have a few of our brilliant team here at London Mutual give some of their great tips and advice to help spread the cost for summer. So thank you all again and thanks to everybody who attended.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.